guest today. And this program, Where Do I Begin, is something Legacy Retirement Communities has been conducting, gosh, for 10 years or so. My name is Kayla Schaf, and I'm a retirement living advisor with Legacy Retirement Communities. And, really this program was created to help educate and be a platform just to comfortably ask questions and learn about retirement living options. So please let me know as you have questions. There is a chat feature on your screen that you can type in questions, but also know at the end of this, I will have my contact information and would love to have a personal conversation with you to just answer your questions. So we will get started here. So we know this past year has been just different. We have faced so many new challenges, and if you look outside, it's kind of a representation of the last year, just wild. I feel so strongly that having a sense of purpose, connection, and well-being is so important. If we've learned anything through this pandemic, the human connection is a fundamental part of just being happy and being whole. And it's my hope that through this conversation, we can empower you to make an informed choice about your future, to keep you in the driver's seat. Our approach at Legacy Retirement Communities is different than some. We really want to make sure folks are planning for their future and really have control of writing their own story in retirement living. And, our approach is all about the people we are working with. And so I hope this presentation will help you kind of define new or different personal values and goals of well-being and how to feel confident about the lifestyle you want and are looking to have. So we're going to kind of dive into the well-being side of things. So this year has definitely sparked a lot of conversation about well-being. And, as we kind of look at, this past year and some of the things that we've had to experience, what are the things we really value and are important? Well-being and happiness are associated with a wide range of positive outcomes, and that include your physical well-being and psychological well-being and health. We have faced and are still facing new challenges that have created higher level of stress due to the pandemic, like the stay-at-home orders or the social distancing and the lack of personal connection with our families and our friends. It has just created new ways of living and adapting. And unfortunately for many, being isolated has really negatively impacted our well-being. So it's really opened the door for more conversation and more attention drawn to, what we really need and what is important around our mental health. We sent you a handout in an email that has some great tools. And in the handout, there is a well-being tool. And so when you're talking, and when we think about this, we really wanted to give folks an opportunity to just take a minute and reflect on that self-inventory. And this is just a tool to kind of ask yourself some questions and just really check in with yourself and how you're doing. So by assessing and understanding your feelings and beliefs about well-being, looking at your mood, your pain, your quality of life, I think as you're more aware, we have the ability to predict developing and more serious health issues or a medical decline. So it's so important to have a pulse on what that means. And on a grander scale, how satisfied are you in these areas of life? And what are your major problems? We visit with a lot of folks that are dealing with physical issues or as they are researching options, are motivated to look at change because of a situation. So, oftentimes we ask, how has this problem affected your day to day? And what small steps can you take to kind of take back your power, and addressing some healthy changes? So, when you have a minute, or after this presentation, I really encourage you to spend some time looking at these things, and, maybe talking with a family friend or a loved one that could help evaluate. And I know, from the mental health side of things, it's been a very challenging year, and I do encourage, please reach out to your doctor or your health professional if you're needing more assistance. It's really important to address, that overall wellness. But you're probably wondering, how does this tie into retirement living? Well, it does. And oftentimes, well-being is so heavily influenced by our values. And our personal values are kind of our inner compass that help us navigate the different experiences and transitions. And personally, I've visited with many, many families, who often start looking at retirement living after a problem, after a situation, that has impacted their current well-being. So a goal, we try to have this conversation with folks proactively, of just really assessing, how are things going? And with your current well-being, when you evaluate, are you able to recognize areas where your values aren't being represented, or there are inconsistencies in room for growth and or improvement? um, One example I can share is, Ted. When we have values that, either we have learned and gone through life experiences, Ted's an example, and we hear oftentimes where that financial, value is so very important. Ted is someone I've worked with, and his finances are a big part of our conversation. And after learning, that growing up, he had a very hard time in childhood, and saw, his folks scraping by to put food on the table. And so growing up, it was always a motivation of his to have financial stability, and how that looks now different, in this season of life. A lot of his decisions are based on those financial, impacts. So our values represent, us in many different ways. This is just an example of a values list, and it's different for everyone. But I think of myself and my own health and well-being. I value my health, and my ability to take care of my daughter and my husband, and live my life the best way I can. And if I'm not taking care of my body, eating well and exercising, my actions and behaviors aren't aligning with those values, and it can cause, discord and unhappiness. So, this isn't a conversation most folks really have, and but it's something that we found really is important in helping people navigate change, and looking at, what is important to you as you plan for your future, and keeping true to your own desires and wants for the future. Values develop from personal experience. They're observed. Sometimes the thoughts and feelings we have about retirement, stem from our own parents, and when they were aging, and the situations that they were dealing with at the time. So sometimes it's important to evaluate. Something we often hear, especially in a husband and wife situation, is, oh, I will never put you somewhere, or I will take care of you at home until we pass. And that's something that, with the offerings of retirement communities and the quality of care and services and the lifestyle you can receive, it's really important to revisit those values and make sure they align with your goals. Values allow for the ability to design and edit and rewrite the life you want to live. And it's based on your needs and what's most important as a person. They are not goals and they're not fixed. So as you transition into a different phase of life, it's important to just visit those things. So, and why we mention this is that when you do take a proactive approach of exploring and talking and educating, asking questions, you can really get clear on what's important to you in your future. I wanted to share, so Jean and Ruth Rauscher are residents of here at the Legacy, and they are just great friends of mine and just really awesome. They had recognized for themselves about what they wanted for their future. And I just thought, they tell their story best. So I'm going to share a little video clip with you.
The people who have a hard time deciding to go into any kind of retirement setting have the most difficulty are the ones who don't decide, and then there's a medical emergency and the doctor comes in and says, you can't go home anymore, we will find a place for you. And not being able to be part of that decision is really difficult for a lot of people. But you don't have to wait for that incident to happen. You can decide that you're going to make your life easier, better. You mentioned people don't come and visit you as much as they did. And heaven knows with the phone, that's not the same as having people come and visit. And they don't call as often either. If you were someplace in a retirement setting, you would have people that you could see, talk to if you want. Don't talk to them if you don't want to. They have activities, they have things for you to do. I watch you reading these books, playing crossword puzzles. Those are all things you do by yourself. You could still do that. But you could be around other people and enjoy that time. Haven't you worked long enough and hard enough to enjoy the rest of your life? Think about quality of life. What could you find that would help you enjoy your later years even more? We all know we only have so many and God hasn't told us how much. So make the best of every day. Have you done any shopping for that? You can shop for facilities. You have an idea of where you'd like to go. You've talked to some of your friends who are in a place, or they know someone who's been in a place that has a good experience, and you talk to some who've had a bad experience. Now, why was one good and one bad? Think about it a while.
All right. So Jean and Ruth have a very down-to-earth approach about looking at their future. And I have a few more video clips, and I apologize if the quality is a little different, but and I can absolutely send these videos out later in an email. But Jean and Ruth really wanted to stay in the driver's seat of their transition and their future. And they joke often that they took that decision away from their kids and they were glad about it. They didn't want to give their kids the opportunity to make that decision without them. And and as we know that there are no alternatives to the aging process, therefore the way to cope and deal with change is to address our attitudes about it. And security lies in our own strength, and if we're willing to open our minds and be open to the opportunities of different living, we see a lot of folks really embrace the ideas of retirement living and often enjoy then what it brings. So, if you're willing to break out of your comfortable modes and embrace letting people help, we're all in this life together, and the only way to cope with change is to take an active part of it. And really helping people cope with the big changes in their life is something that we help with. And William Bridges is a psychologist that I came across, and this diagram of transition really helped me understand and really cope with changes in my own life. And change itself can be rewarding, but typically it's the transition that can be really uncomfortable. And oftentimes people get high centered in just, should I or should I not? And I think oftentimes just by understanding the phases of transition can help us identify, what areas we need clarity on. So just to describe Bridges' phases of transition, William Bridges, a respected theorist in managing transition, says that change is situational, while transition is defined as a movement or passage from one stage to another is psychological. So the first phase of transition is the ending phase. So he says that in every transition that starts with ending, and you're letting go of something. This may be a way of life, an attitude or belief, or material or tangible things. These are the losses that we must process and adjust to, even if it's temporary. I just think of this pandemic and how initially those feelings kind of washed over us. And then there's that transition to it's more normal. And although we are ready for the next phase, it just has given me a lot of thought and process of how I handled some changes like this. And one thing, it is a myth that older adults are not able to adapt to change. The truth is that research shows there's no strong correlation between age and the ability to change. Adapting to change when you're older has more to do with how you've handled change in the past. And so just knowing yourself, I know I'm not great with change. So, it's important to me to be honest with myself and give myself the space to know why. So the next phase is the neutral zone. So this neutral stage starts after the ending is in process or complete. The neutral zone is kind of like a no man's land in between the old reality and new. The old way is gone, but we may not know what the new reality is going to be. So moving to a retirement community or moving to a new town or switching jobs, moving is a great metaphor for the neutral zone. When you're changing your residence after, you sold the house and loaded everything in the moving truck, and there's that period of time when you're driving to your new place, and for a while you're in between. You've left the old place behind, but you're not sure you belong in the new place yet. And that neutral zone often overlaps with the ending. And oftentimes you go back and forth. So it can be feeling two ways that, on one hand, I am really sad about leaving my home of 20 years. But on the other hand, I feel really excited about new opportunities and meeting new friends and not having to worry so much about scooping the snow and the responsibilities with that. And finally, the third stage is a new beginning. So we're not there yet, and we don't know when it will be, but we want that new beginning to start. And as a signal, we can find that, where we are getting back to where the old life used to be and just being more comfortable. And so oftentimes it's difficult to see kind of the future. But we have hope, and find that accepting and transitioning and getting used to that new beginning. So, change is, again, inevitable in a reality of aging. And the folks that I get to have had the blessing of working with, who do really well, are the ones that really take a responsibility for their future, and acknowledge, yes, my health is going to change, my so I need to prepare and live life the best I can. And it's very normal for folks to have mixed feelings about a change like this. And oftentimes ambivalence is a word that you're feeling two ways about it. And on one hand, you see reasons to change and reasons to stay the same. And it is just something that can be uncomfortable, and folks can really get stuck. And so we're just really here to help and empower folks to just cope with change the best you can, and hopefully before you really need to make that change. So, we work with a lot of folks who experience big transitions, big changes in this season of life. And maybe you have experienced, a major health issue, or, a loss of a spouse, or losing the ability to drive. These are just kind of some examples of big changes that folks struggle with and adapt. So, I hope just having some context that it's very normal to struggle and need support with change. So, I'm going to share another video clip of Gene, and he had a health scare after he and Ruth had moved into the legacy. So, going to share that clip with you now.
When we spoke the other day, you talked about, your experience of being healthy, and then all of a sudden when things changed, and what that felt like, and how you responded to that.
Well, you're going to have to speak to that one because I don't remember it.
Okay. We had been here 6 months when all at once Gene was not well. And it kind of came on as supposedly pneumonia. So we went to the doctor. Yeah, you've got pneumonia. Here's some medication. That was a Wednesday. Check in with me on Friday and see how it's going. So we checked in, and we said we're no better here. But we had an appointment on the following Monday. So we talked with our family about it. And I think that the boys two sons were kind of,
They'd have rather shipped me off at that point.
I'm not so sure about waiting till Monday, but they think they're okay, and they're there with staff to keep an eye on them and all, and they were, they trusted us. But Monday came, and I called our older son to come over and help me get him to the doctor. And when Mike walked in and took a look at his dad, I'd already called nursing staff twice to help get him up from a seating position. And Mike was really glad that we were here, and so was I. The help was immediate. And Mike said after our visit to the doctor, when he was hospitalized, that if the doctor hadn't admitted you, we'd have been in the emergency room. He knew it was like that. But, they felt comfortable too, that we had people around here who would help us with the difficulties we were having. And they were very prompt. And, that makes the decision a whole lot easier.
All righty. So Gene and Ruth, shared an example of a health event that really, affected their values and making a change. And, something often we hear is, how important your environment is to remaining healthy. A lot of folks, may look at making a change when their home is no longer serving them. So maybe they are dealing with a lot of stairs, or, on a day like today of scooping snow is just not feasible. yesterday I was talking with a friend of mine who's moving into the legacy, and we just built this really great relationship. And I called him yesterday and I said, Wayne, have you scooped your snow? And he just laughed and he said, I did run the snowblower yesterday, and he had, had to kind of talk to him like a daughter. And he had just had back surgery, and so sometimes our home environment doesn't support our health and well-being and goals. So oftentimes we just encourage, look at your environment and your surroundings. And, sometimes those bad habits are just formed because of the environment we're living in. And so oftentimes by changing your surroundings, you can remove hurdles and just set yourself up for success. And so I have another clip from Ruth again.
I would say, start thinking about it before you're forced to do it. You know what you like in your life. You know what's important to you. Yeah, I thought I was getting along just fine in my own home.
But I noticed her failing.
Slowing down. And actually, I knew that too, but sometimes I let pride get in the way. I can still do these things. Our house had a basement, and that's where my sewing center was. Those steps got steeper and longer. And it was more of a chore to get back up.
You still had 5 steps at the bottom and 8 up at the top.
Thank God for that landing. You can stop and rest a little. Get it together again.
And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to move.
And you had always taken care of the outside stuff, the lawn mowing and moving snow and that kind of thing, and you were well equipped for it. But you got tired of doing the doggone lawn. You can hire lawn service pretty easy.
The snow removal is a whole different problem.
So the house was nice, but the other thing I said it to you the other day when we talked last, the house, those 4 walls have never been our home. We are our home. It's the relationship that makes it your home. So why should I be so married to those 4 walls, that building?
So, like Jean and Ruth shared, they really had to do some evaluating, and it's very typical that we have conversations with folks long before they make a decision, and just weighing the pros and the cons, and really helping people navigate, is retirement living options the best for you? And so we kind of break it down and, discuss why, what is missing in your life or what is not serving you anymore. And then where, Lincoln is so blessed with a lot of options here in town. And so finding the right fit is a personal choice. And so often looking at the different options is very important. And then when is the right time to move? So why, where, and when, and that timing, and just identifying what is best for you in your life and your situation. So, a lot of folks, as they're evaluating retirement communities, they are looking at the following. Many folks, like Jean and Ruth, are very social. They enjoy being with others, and enhance social life, a support system, as Jean kind of shared. They both did when a health event just came out of nowhere. Of course, meals and nutrition, and having the options of just making life easier, maintenance-free living, and having support with housekeeping. Overall, that security and peace of mind that if you should need something, there is someone there to help. And a lot of folks, just as you are evaluating, this is where your values kind of play in, and how you're living your life right now. So we encourage you to kind of, evaluate those things, questions to ask yourself. And, and just be honest. Sometimes it's really looking in the mirror and just realizing, okay, what is my plan, and how do we make every day count, um, and what is important to you when you look down the road, and the legacy you leave for yourself and your family, and all of that. So, in the handout, I wanted to show, we have just some neat tools that we have come across that I really feel like has helped people. In the handout, we have a kind of a grid that looks like this. And basically, it is just a tool to use that, if you're contemplating a big change, and this will work for any big change, whether it's a new job opportunity for some, or deciding to relocate to be closer to family. So it's a tool that you can use, and it just says things that I will lose. A column that says things that I will lose, things that will stay the same, and things that will change. And some of the feedback, as we're talking with families or folks looking at moving from their home, one big thing is losing their neighbors. Recently, I visited this week with a gentleman who is looking at relocating from Iowa, coming to Lincoln, and there's a lot of big changes when you're looking at changing states. And one of his questions or comments was just leaving the network of people that he has grown to love and support. And his wife is dealing with some memory issues, and as we were talking, he recognized that he is going to lose that network of connections in some way. But then as we were talking through it, he said, with the amount of time that I get to spend anyway with friends, and Zoom, and with the current situation, really I can still connect with them. And so just kind of working through those things. And there, of course, is going to be some major changes to your lifestyle, but I think it's really good and helpful to evaluate what those changes really are. And we can help with that. Also, in kind of closing, we also have included information about independent living, about assisted living, the different levels of care, and some of those frequently asked questions. We are happy to share details about legacy retirement communities. We have brochures and packets and retirement living advisors that, I would love the opportunity to have a conversation with you about your situation, and just being a resource, whatever that looks like. But included in the packet of information that was emailed out, we kind of listed, the differences between independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing. What is the difference between a continuing care community, and kind of those questions that are frequently asked. Also, the financial piece. The financial piece is something very important that most folks want clarity on and need some support and understanding. And what do you get for that monthly fee, and what is it going to cost per month? And I would be more than happy to visit with you again one-on-one to just get clarity on what your situation is and what you're looking for, and what those pricings, how they align with what you're needing and wanting. We have retirement living advisors at each of our locations, and would love to visit with you further. So I really, please reach out if you would like to have more information. And we would be happy to discuss. So thank you for spending your time today, and have a great day. Stay